There are always a few defining moments in a marriage. For some, it's the day the husband popped the question. For others, it's the birth of their first child or the day the court ordered a divorce. For me, Alex Johnson, the defining day was a barbecue. Not that my wife Sonia and I haven't had some great moments in our 9 years of marriage and 11 years of committed relationship. Before that famous barbecue, the most defining moment for me was when I asked her out and she said yes. She was and still is the most beautiful woman I have ever met or even talked to. From the first moment we met, it was lust at first sight, that beautiful feeling behind many romantic movies. Well, they call it love. But how can it be love at first sight before you even talk to each other? Anyway, back to the story. It was a bright, sunny day in late June, not too hot, just nice and perfect. So far, the barbecue was succeeding to perfection. As a senior manager at T-Bolt Inc., it was a long-standing tradition to invite my subordinate employees to a summer barbecue at my home. There were only 8 of us in the supply department, but along with our spouses and children, up to 30 guests gathered on this sunny and gorgeous day. I had the pool open and the kids were having a lot of fun. Around 9 p.m., most of the families left, leaving about a dozen singles or couples without kids. Beer, wine, and soft drinks poured all day, and some of us were a little tipsy. My responsibility was to make sure that no one in a drunken state tried to get home in a car. I collected all the car keys and only handed them to the designated driver or cab driver. As I was walking back to the house, helping old Herb into the cab, I heard Brett Sinclair yapping loudly. Naturally bossy, Brett gets very loud when he's drunk, and the volume increases in proportion to the amount he drinks. I'm sure Lavoisier had Brett in mind when he said that nothing is created or destroyed, but only transformed. The energy that bursts out of Brett's mouth when he is drunk comes directly from the alcohol burning in his brain. There was no love lost between us. We had never been friends when we worked together as senior procurement officers, and our relationship had fallen to a low point 3 years ago when I, as the youngest of us, had been promoted despite his seniority. I was now 35 and the youngest senior manager at T-Bolts Inc. I hoped he wasn't making a fool of himself because I would have to use the maximum diplomacy I was capable of, and there was never much of it when it came to Brett. I've never seen such ugly kids. My God, I'm glad I don't eat every time I look at them. They're vomit freaks. Oh my God. Brett was heading for trouble. Talking about other people's kids. What a mess. I had to stop him before his parents got mad. As I walked towards him, the other 2 guys listening to him noticed my approach. The smirks on their faces suddenly disappeared. They even took a step back, away from Brett. I was puzzled until I heard the rest of his tirade. I can't understand this. Their mom is gorgeous, and their dad, even though he's a dumbass, isn't bad-looking either. I'm not stupid. I tell it like I see it. How the hell did they get such ugly kids? Did Sonia sleep with the milkman? If so, he must be an ugly bastard, that's for sure. Brett was a little surprised when his 2 listeners just stepped away from him, leaving him speechless. I was seething. Drunk or not, he had crossed a line I couldn't forgive. He could talk about me as a boss or as a presenter, and that would be fine. But talking about my children, my little angels, I couldn't. Walking over to him, I put a firm hand on his shoulder. He turned his head to look at the intruder and recognized me. He turned pale. Get out of here, asshole, I said, gritting my teeth. You're drunk. I'll call a cab. Wait by the curb. Drunk or not, Brett knew he was in trouble. When I grabbed him and started pulling him toward the front door, he started apologizing. Sorry about that, buddy. I was just trying to make fun of the guys. I didn't mean it, he said, calmly following my lead. I kicked him out and closed the door. I was tempted to give him back his car keys so he could crash it somewhere, but my sense of decency and the thought of him killing innocent people stopped me. When the cab finally arrived, I got out and gave Brett's keys to the driver. I was in a bad mood now, and it showed. The 2 guys who had been listening to Brett left shortly after him with their wives, and the barbecue was officially over. A few friends helped clean up a bit, and the party was over. Sonia put the kids to bed, and I continued cleaning up. When we were finally alone, Sonia asked me what was wrong. I had calmed down a bit by then, so I just said that I was angry that Brett had gotten so drunk that he started making fun of the people at the barbecue and making fun of their kids. Sonia agreed that it wasn't very nice of him, and gently encouraged me to dismiss his behavior and not let it ruin my good mood. Completely exhausted from the barbecue, we went to bed very early. The next morning, Sonia took our 2 kids to church. I was raised Catholic, and I still believe most of what I was taught, but I don't really like going to church. While they were gone, I dutifully finished cleaning up the backyard. It gave me time to think. Brett hit the mark. As I said before, Sonia is one of the most beautiful women I have ever met. She's 33 years old, 2 years younger than me, and has the nicest lips I've ever kissed, a cute upturned nose, deep-set hazel eyes, and a face to die for. As for me, I am said to be a handsome man. Just over 6 feet tall, weighing only 180 pounds, I have a good figure thanks to the few hours Sonia and I spend each week on the exercise machines. We met at a friend's party, and I still think we might have been set up on a blind date. It worked just fine because I was speechless for a few seconds when I first saw Sonia. Her figure was a harmony of delicate curves, more pronounced where it mattered, on her hips and breasts. The host, Helen, was standing next to me, looking at me and smirking. She took my hand and pulled me towards the beautiful stranger. "Hi, Sonia. Let me introduce you to Alex Johnson, an old friend from high school. Alex, this is Sonia Arnold. She started working in my office last month." We shook hands, said hi, and Helen left us alone. We spent the next few minutes getting to know each other. Sonia was easy to get along with, unlike other gorgeous women I'd met before who often seemed self-centered. We spent the rest of the evening together laughing and enjoying each other. Our initial shyness slowly but surely melted away like snow on a warm spring day. By the time the party was over, we danced a little, but mostly chatted all evening. I enjoyed being with the most beautiful woman in the world, feeling almost no lust, but feeling a strange sense that this woman had to be the one. When the party was over, I asked her if I could have her phone number. She smiled and gave it to me. We didn't end up at my apartment until our 4th date. The first surprise of the evening was her pouncing on me, kissing me as soon as she was in my apartment, her hands traveling all over my body. It wasn't long before we were in my bed. She was a vision from a dream. But she surprised me when I was on top of her and was about to experience the wonderful feeling of first contact. "Careful, Alex. I'm a virgin." Was surprise a strong enough word? I couldn't believe that such a beautiful woman, already in her 20s, was with a man for the first time in her life. In my experience, women like this have so many opportunities to be with men that they rarely live into their 20s without having sex. But, as I found out seconds later, she was a virgin, and I was her first lover. We never looked back. We dated for the next 2 years and then got married. The last 11 years have been amazing. It's not that our love for each other has gotten stronger, but our love has grown each year into a complete union of body and soul. We are well off. Sonia works as an accountant for the same employer for the past 11 years, taking a year of maternity leave when all our children were born. And as I said, I'm on the top management team of my company. We have 2 children, Tanya, age 6, and Alex Jr., age 4. They are the most beautiful and intelligent children I know. Tanya and I love them dearly, so their pictures take up almost an entire wall in the hallway, from birth to their most recent snapshots. I stood in front of a picture taken last month at Tanya's birthday party. I scrutinized the snapshot. Both kids had light brown hair, just like Sonia and me. The younger one even had ears protruding slightly from his skull, like me, and also like some of his cousins on my side of the family. But that was where the similarities ended. I had no frame of reference for Sonia's side of the family line. Both of her parents had died before I met her, and she was an only child. I met one of her cousins 9 years ago at our wedding, but she lives out west, and we never saw each other after that. In fact, Sonia has absolutely no memories of her childhood. 2 years before we met, while she was in college, tragedy struck her family. She lost both of her parents in a fire that burned their house to the ground, redrawing her entire life in one night. She opened her heart to me and told me that she had been under the care of doctors for over a year, struggling with severe clinical depression. But eventually she pulled through and regained her will to live. Despite being financially independent, she inherited a significant amount of money from her parents. She decided that she needed to be active. She completed an accounting course and went out to work. A month later, we met. Tearing myself away from looking at the photos, I forced myself not to think about Brett's unnerving comments. Why should I let a drunkard's rude remarks bother me? Soon, Sonia and the kids returned from church and all the nagging feelings left me. My family is just great. 5 months later, we attended a Christmas party thrown by Sonia's employer, Matthew Burns. We sat at the same table with our mutual friends Helen, her husband Bill, and another couple, Jenny, who worked with Sonia and Helen, and her husband Mark. I was showing Mark pictures of my 2 children, as proud a father as ever. I always have new pictures in my wallet. And then Sonia asked me to dance. I threw the pictures on the table and followed her to the dance floor, where we danced a few numbers and returned to our table. I guess every workplace has its drunks. One of them was sitting in my chair, looking at pictures of my kids and talking to Helen. "Are those the boss's kids? I thought they were older," he asked. Helen took the pictures from him. "Give them back to me, you moron. They're Sonia's kids," Helen replied. "I'll be damned," hissed the guy whose name I had completely forgotten. "I could swear they're the boss's kids with their chubby noses." He got up and walked away, staggering gingerly between the tables. Reaching the table, I picked up my pictures and carefully put them back in my wallet, but not before taking another look at my angels. True, their noses are a little big, but they're still little, and we know how our looks change as we get older. Like a puppy outgrows its big paws. However, it was at this very moment that Matthew Burns decided to come over to our table and chat. I couldn't help but stare at his nose. It was big. He wasn't an ugly man, but his nose was hard to miss, and it looked an awful lot like Tanya and Junior's noses. After realizing this, you can understand how quiet and unresponsive I was for the rest of the evening. Under the pretense of a headache, Sonia and I soon left and headed home. The kids were at my parents' house, and we planned to spend the evening having hot sex. To put it mildly, I was not in the mood. Soon we were in bed, and Sonia was asleep within minutes. Without making a fuss, I got up and went into the living room. There I sat on the couch in the dark. My head was spinning. Not from the alcohol, but from the dark thought that was running through my head. Could it be that Sonia had cheated on me, twice, or at least within 2 years? Could it be that she was still cheating, with her boss? That drunk guy and Brett were right. My kids were nothing like me. I couldn't hide from these facts any longer, but it was very hard for me to even imagine that Sonia could be cheating on me. Impossible. I could talk for hours about the extent of our mutual love. I could describe all the intimate, beautiful moments we have shared together over the past 11 years, 9 years as husband and wife. When we say I love you to each other, it's not a courtesy or, as in many couples, just emotion. Even after 11 years, we say it and show that we mean it. In the morning, if one of us is late for work and only has time for a quick peck on the cheek, we make sure to tell the other that it's just an advance before the much bigger paycheck that will come in the evening. Our proof of love is Sonia, who comes up behind me when I'm busy doing some chores around the house, hugs me tightly, kisses my neck, and says, "I just found the center of my universe. Washing dishes. The attraction is too strong. I'm stuck to you forever." Our proof of love is when I see Sonia tired after work, put the kids to bed, then fill a pot with warm water and just wash her feet while she relaxes in the living room. Our proof of love is when one of us hugs the other and doesn't want to let go. Our proof of love is expressed in so many different ways, often simple, but always meaningful. Is it really all an act? Not on my part. But now I doubted Sonia's sincerity. After receiving information from 2 different sources, neither of which was a friend, sort of neutral, I was confronted with the fact that neither of my children looked like me. I stood again in front of the last pictures of Tanya and Junior that we had hung on the wall. The hair and eye color were fine. So were Junior's ears, but the nose and, as I now realized, the chins of both kids were wrong. Both had slightly sunken chins very close to their necks, and that too was wrong compared to Sonia and me. We didn't have prominent chins, we had normal chins, not sunken at all. I had no choice. The more I looked at pictures of my children, the more I noticed discrepancies between what they should look like and their actual faces. Wasn't the youngest also a little small for his age? Sonia is 165 centimeters tall, so she's average height, and I'm just over a meter tall, so I'm above average. I had to make sure of that. On Monday, I'll ask for a DNA test to see if Tanya and Alex Jr. are mine. I went back into the living room and collapsed on the couch. I love these kids. They're smart, loving, and I don't know what I'd do without them. But the facts were stacked against me being a father. Sonia was working for Matthew Burns when she got pregnant. Even though the birth was in March, one of the busiest months for the company, when clients were required to complete all their tax returns, I remember well that Sonia was quietly granted maternity leave. Which is fine, since our standard labor law imposes such obligations on the employer, as well as a promise from the boss himself that her place would be waiting for her when she returned. And this in a non-union organization. I was right. There was only one way to solve the problem, and I would do it next Monday. Before I went to bed, I poked around on the internet and found one lab in the area that could run the tests. Sunday turned out to be a great day. I didn't really feel like a loving husband and father. Honestly, being a loving father was easier, but being a loving husband was very difficult. I had to use my supposed illness again to explain my detached behavior. But overall, things went smoothly. The first thing I did on Monday was stop by the lab for a set of tests. Wow, I could have used some Q-tips and individual Ziploc bags for the test. What a joke. At work, I read the instructions and suggested that the kids go to bed in the evening. That's when I took their DNA sample. The next morning, taking my own sample, I took the kits to the lab. Now, I had to wait 2 weeks. I thought it would be the longest 2 weeks of my life. First, I was worried about the test results. What would they tell me? Was I the father? The worst part was that I thought I already knew the results. I had 2 weeks to pull myself together to prepare for the awful truth. I had 2 weeks to decide what to do about my 2 angels. Despite all my doubts and worries, I still loved my 2 bastards. I still loved the moments when I had to pick them up every morning, the hectic hours when I got them ready for school and daycare, the joyful moments spent in the evening playing with them, bathing them, and putting them to bed. The story, Daddy! Don't forget the story. And I didn't forget. Usually, Sonia and I alternated between reading bedtime stories. I, on the other hand, volunteered for all of them. Second, how to behave with Sonia. I felt betrayed even before I got the DNA test results. That's not how it should be. I should have waited for the results. But deep down, I knew what they would be. The whole time, I felt like I had a dagger in my heart. My marriage was a sham, and I was the victim of a cruel joke. How could I maintain a normal demeanor when I knew Sonia was a cheating whore who had been having a laugh at my expense for years? I felt hurt, the exact object of Sonia's and her lover's ridicule. The pain was omnipresent. I felt it at work, but mostly at home. How could she deceive me, betray me? She had to know that I loved her, and that my love had no boundaries. She had to know how deeply I would be hurt. Bitch! Anger took over my mind. How could she do this to me? Even though I wanted to remain calm while waiting for the test results, I had a short fuse. It was hard for me to be in the same room with Sonia. Her voice tormented my soul, igniting a boiling rage deep inside me every time she spoke to me. She was very upset by my abruptness. I explained that I had some business that I didn't feel like talking about, and I would just wait as the matter would be resolved within the next week. As you can see, I didn't lie to her. It made us one and the same. If she decided it was work-related, then so be it. The following Saturday, after we put the kids to bed, Sonia asked me to join her in the living room. I was dreading this confrontation. I would have preferred to have the test results in hand, but the anger was spilling over the edge. Alex, you've become a completely different person over the past week, Sonia began. Not only has your attitude been cold, but often you've been downright rude to me. I want to be an understanding wife and help you with everything that's happened at work, but you need to be open about what's bothering you. Honestly, the last week has been really hard. I didn't even look at her. I didn't utter a word. So, what's the matter? Sonia asked. What happened at work that's making you act like an asshole? Sonia insisted. What makes you think anything happened at work? I snapped back. Isn't it funny that you decided like our marriage had nothing to do with it? Our perfect marriage? She recoiled at my tone, surprise written all over her face. What do you mean, our marriage? She asked. What's wrong with our marriage? I thought everything was perfect, that we loved each other. Tell me something. What's wrong? A perfect marriage isn't based on lies, I hissed at her. If that's possible, she was even more surprised. She stared at me, clearly taken aback by my statement. Lies? What lie? I don't understand, she asked. I got up, went into the hallway, ripped a picture of our children off the wall, and went back into the living room. I threw the picture frame on the coffee table in front of her. The glass in the frame shattered, a fitting image of our marriage. That's a lie, I said loudly, finally getting angry. See those two noses, those chins? How long did you think to keep me in the dark? I've taken steps to find out the truth, but nothing is as conspicuous as the nose in the center of your face. My face moved closer to hers. My next words hit her forehead like poison. I know your dirty little secret, liar! I suddenly saw recognition on her face. Both her hands went up to her face and she began to cry. Crying won't get you anywhere, I said. All these years of lies, such grand deceit. Do you really think your tears can wash it all away? Oh, Alex, she sobbed. I didn't want you to find out this way. I'm so sorry. I should have told you sooner. I've been meaning to do it many times in the 11 years we've been together, but I never got the courage. Her last words hit me hard, really hard. In the last 11 years, since I've known her, in our entire marriage? I started to shake. My legs started to give out. I had to sit down in the chair, facing my cheating wife. I didn't know what to say anymore. Oh, I'm so sorry, Alex, she said between sobs. Please forgive me. That snapped me out of my stupor. Forgive you! I shouted. 11 years of lies, 11 years of deceit, and I'm supposed to forgive you. Are you out of your mind? Are you crazy? Tears streamed down her cheeks. She looked at me with pleading eyes. Don't take it like that, Alex. It's all nonsense. It was just to make me feel better, to make me feel wanted, loved. We love each other so much. It can't all go away because of this. Please understand how I feel. Understand how you feel? I shouted again, angry at her rationalization. How about understand how I feel when I discovered your lies? When I found out our marriage was a sham? Silence and sobs followed. My anger subsided a little. I still can't believe it, I said, calming down a little. 11 years. 9 of them as my wife. You told me over and over again that you loved me, yet you kept that secret from me, were untruthful. How could you do that? Sonia tried to take my hand, but I shied away from any contact with her. Her face showed resentment. Don't be like that, Alex. It's really not a big deal. It was just a physical release I needed. It has nothing to do with the true and intense love we share together, she said, reigniting my anger. Nothing to do with our love? Growled I. It has everything to do with our love, our marriage. When we said our vows, did the words "be true to each other" mean anything to you? Nothing, absolutely nothing can justify your betrayal, nothing. Sonia stood up and headed for our bedroom. Good. She finally realized that her behavior didn't stand up to scrutiny. I heard her rummaging around in the closet for a while, hoping she was going to leave, but she came back into the living room with a brown envelope in her hands. She held the envelope out to me. Take it. It will help me explain why I went to extreme measures, why I needed this solution to help me feel better, she said softly. I was a little confused. What could be in the envelope that could ease my pain, that could explain her lies? It wasn't sealed. I opened the flap and looked inside. What I saw made my blood boil. It was nude pictures of Sonia. I just couldn't believe it. How could she try to make amends by showing pictures of her affairs, her cheating? Was she out of her mind? I tossed the envelope back to her and gave my opinion. Are you out of your mind? How are these dirty pictures going to help me forgive you? You think I'm some sick bastard who can get high off your shameful behavior? I said, standing up. I'm getting out of here. I'm going to pack my things and go to a hotel tonight. I started to stagger toward the bedroom, determined to pack my suitcase and leave the house. Sonia rushed over to me, grabbed me, and stopped me in my tracks. I'm not the kind of man who hits women, so I stood still. "Please, Alex, you're overreacting. Please give me a few minutes to explain," she pleaded, her face flooded with tears. Gasping, I thought for a bit, unable to break free from her grip. "5 minutes," I finally said. "You have 5 minutes and then I'll leave." Without loosening her grip, she took a step back. "It all started when my life was turned upside down when my parents died in a fire that destroyed everything," she said so quietly I had to listen to hear her. Suddenly, with no close family, no friends, no boyfriend, I was left all alone to face this devastating blow that swept away everyone I had ever loved. There were some acquaintances, my father's partners, who helped me out a little, but mostly I was still alone and had no one to talk to. A large part of my soul died that day with my parents. My mind was buried in the ashes of our home. Immediately after the funeral, I was admitted to a psychiatric hospital due to severe depression. There I got professional help and found my way out. She paused for a few seconds. I still didn't understand how her explanation could help heal our marriage, but she had piqued my curiosity, and I listened. Sonia rarely talked about that period of her life. Even after all these years, the pain was still very strong. "It's strange to remember events I'd rather forget," she continued. "The doctor, a psychiatrist, really helped me find a way to get back on my feet. My soul was lost, my mind was shattered, I was broken, but the answer wasn't in the mind, it was in the body. I had to change myself, I had to respond to the dictates of my physical needs." The next 18 months were the most exciting of my life. I gave my body away one piece at a time, savoring every moment of discovery. Her eyes were no longer looking at me. They were staring off into the distance at the events that would forever define her life. I could understand her need at the time to treat her mind to carnal pleasures. But what did that have to do with our situation? That was then, and now we were at a different stage of her life. Her 5 minutes were almost up, but I was eager to hear more. Suddenly a thought occurred to me. Is she messing with me? "Hey, wait a second," I said, breaking the silence. "Weren't you a virgin when we went to bed the first time?" "Of course I was," she replied simply. "You were my first and only." What the hell? Was she trying to deny something had happened to her boss again? What kind of game was she playing? "Come on," I growled, my anger returning. "Are you telling me that because you had clinical depression in your 20s, you can't be held accountable for your lies, for your behavior after we got married?" "No, that doesn't explain why I kept my secrets. I just want to explain that somewhere else there was still shame, embarrassment for what I went through," she said. "I never worked up the courage to show you the real me, the way I really was, for fear that you would reject me." She let go of me and dumped the contents of the envelope on the coffee table. I couldn't look away in time and glimpsed the top photo of a naked woman. Not Sonia. Another woman. Oh my God! So that's why she's still a virgin. She had sex with a lesbian and an ugly one at that. I looked again. Sure enough, her mistress was not very nice looking, less than homely, and really not attractive with her very small breasts, thick waist, and fat ass. My God, Sonia had to be very depressed to fall in love with this woman. "Well, dirty secrets come out of everywhere," I muttered back. "Is this your mistress?" Sonia looked at me with a puzzled look. "Mistress?" she interjected. "I'm not following you. Are you making fun of me? Because the only sex I had before you was alone in my bed?" "Yes, I was that ugly!" she shouted and ran toward the bedroom. Fat but not that dumb, I finally realized her secret. I sat down on the couch and started going through the pictures. The first picture was of her before all the surgeries. In the next, her face mottled with a few dotted lines made with a marker. In the next, her head was wrapped in a stare. The next picture showed her beautiful face, as I had only known her to be. Finally, the last photo showed the result of liposuction and breast implants. I went back to the first picture and cried tears of joy. My beautiful children are an exact duplication of their mother.